Hello guys, Crispy and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a Radeon RX Vega 56 in Hogwarts Legacy. This one is the Sapphire Pulse edition of the card. I am running it with the latest AMD drivers as usual, and I'm not overclocking it. Although, a lot of people complained about this. It only consumes 180 watts by default, this card, so I'm going to push the power limit to plus 50%. Why not? We will end up getting a little bit more stable clock speeds and slightly higher performance at the cost of like 100 watts of power or like 70 or so. Totally worth it, right? Moving on, we can see all of the GPU specs right here in Tech Power Up's GPU Z. It has 8GB of HBM2 memory. That's good stuff, you know. And over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 7 5800X3D and 32GB of RAM to avoid CPU bottlenecks. Let's get into it, shall we? Alright, let's go over the settings first. I'm playing at 1080p resolution using TAA on low. It's either low or high. High is actually way more intensive, so I'll keep it on low for the medium settings preset. And we're using no upscaler at the moment, but we're going to utilize some FSR in just a little bit, which looks really, really good in this game. Over on the advanced settings, as I told you, we're using the medium settings preset, and later on we'll use the high settings preset as well. Alright, so this is medium settings at the native 1080p, which looks really, really soft. A castle. You call this a castle, my friend? What? Are you serious? This is just a freaking brick wall or something. It's like we're playing Tetris right there with magic. Anyway, what are we talking about? Let's move on inside of this forest right here. It's not dropping from 60 frames per second, which is very good to see because it did drop from 60 in my full review of the card in the Sunday video. Yeah, it was getting around like 50 to 60 frames per second most of the time in this area right here, and the averages ended up being a little bit lower than 60 FPS. This, however, is very stable, well above 60 all of the time. You can rest assured that it won't really drop, even in very, very intensive scenarios, I think, because, well, where we started was already a very, very intensive scenario, basically.
Does it get any more cozy than Hogsmeade?
Does it get any more cozy than Hogsmeade, my friends? That's my question to you guys. Does it? I think it's more cozy in my room right now. With that power consumption, it gets really, really cozy. I would say a bit too cozy, so I would probably not push that power limit up, you know? Although it's not really utilizing that much more power. At 4K, I noticed that it went from 180 watts to 250, 60, but here at 1080p, there's not much of a difference. Hello, Jack. We gotta pet this guy, of course. How's it going, buddy? Oh, very good to see you here in Hogwarts Legacy. Alright, I just came here to Hogsmeade to show you that it's not really more GPU intensive than other areas in the map. If you're seeing slowdowns here in Hogsmeade, it's because you have a CPU bottleneck. So let's move on to a little bit more of an intensive area, shall we? And that is right here, south of Hogsmeade, guys, in this little river. If you follow it, it will drop your FPS like crazy. Look at that! Damn, it actually drops from 60 FPS. I thought it wouldn't. Okay. Up here, it's also really intensive, these trees, for some reason. Like, we've been to the forest, which is a bit more dense than this one, and it didn't drop as much as here. So I just found this little scenario here, and it's the most intensive thing that I've come across so far, for the GPU to handle, of course. CPU-wise, it's a different story in Hogsmeade and Hogwarts. Hogsmeade and Hogwarts are more CPU-bound, basically. But yeah, you can get some pretty stable frames per second. Unfortunately, it's not 60 plus all of the time, but if you avoid this general area right here, or basically this little part of the river, yeah, over here, you're gonna be fine. It only drops here. Alright, guys, and I have explored quite a bit of the map, as you can see, up there in the forest and stuff, and this over here is just the most intensive little spot. Anyway, let's stop it there. That was pretty dang smooth and very, very nice indeed, and we should try it out with some FSR2 on quality. I'm gonna bump up that sharpness, because it looks great here in this game. Again, it's really, really soft at native resolution. And I'm not sure if you can tell on YouTube with the compression and everything, but it looks a bit better in my opinion. The trees are a bit more pixelated here at 1080p, I can tell that. Yeah, some leaves are just pixels. But it looks better to me because it's actually a sharp looking image now. And I would expect this kind of visuals coming from, for example, native resolution if you were enabled to disable TAA, for example. So yeah, FSR2 in this game is looking really, really good and impressive. And as you could see there, it only dropped to like 70 frames per second instead of 51 or 50. So it's much more stable at the same time, and if you want 60 plus all of the time, well, this is it. Again, it's arguably better looking than 1080p using TAA at the same time, and you gain more FPS, so I would totally recommend FSR2 in this game. Let's move on to 1440p. Yeah, keeping it simple here with FSR, you know, there's just no point in visiting Hogsmeade. It's less intensive, as I told you. I gotta restart to play at 1440p and set the resolution here in the desktop, so this is it, and now we're back to it. Just gonna disable the upscaling, and we're at 2560 by 1440. Doesn't have a full screen, that's why you need to set it in the desktop. So medium settings, once again, let's go. Wow guys, 60 something frames per second at 1440p medium. That is pretty impressive actually. Not bad. Let's start counting the frames. Of course, it will drop. Oh my god, it drops by a ton actually near the water. Interesting. Yes, it can. I told you it can get more cozy, especially at 1440p, because look at that power utilization. It went up by another 25 to 30 watts of power. So, yeah, it's getting very cozy indeed. Okay. Around Hogsmeade, it gets 50 to 60 frames, a little bit more stuttering now, as you can see. Not sure why. It was a little bit more stable, I guess, at 1080p. Maybe it's because, well, we're just walking around for the first time after a restart of the game. I don't know. But yeah, overall, it's going to be a pretty stable and playable experience, even at 1440p resolution, guys. Vega 56 is still hanging in there, as you can see. This is pretty amazing. This card is from 2017, same year as the 1080 Ti. It competed with the GTX 1070, and I doubt the GTX 1070 is as good as this in this game, at least. You know, in recent titles, the Vega 56 can definitely pull ahead by quite a lot. It also consumes a heck of a lot more power than 1070, though. But when they released, they were really neck and neck, basically. Alright, this is the little river right here. Okay, there we go. 50s, not bad. 40s, same as we've seen before. And now let's go down here. Oh boy, 34 and 33 FPS. That is unexpected. Wow, it can drop like crazy in that area, guys. Holy! Fortunately, once again, inside of normal forests, you will see 40 plus frames per second, basically. But in that little spot, it can definitely slow down by quite a bit. It's very noticeable. But hey, it's only in that little spot anyways, as I told you, and it is looking way better than 1080p, a lot sharper indeed, and it's still very playable, of course. So if you have a 1440p monitor, you can play with this card, especially if you enable FSR on quality. Gonna bump up that sharpness again, and it looks basically the same now, maybe a little bit fuzzier in some of the vegetation again, but it's harder to see here at 1440, and now it's getting 70s, almost touching 80 frames per second. Let's go over here again, actually, and see the results near the water. Yeah, it's not dropping into the 40s anymore, it's stable into the 60s. I think if you are playing this game at 1440p, this is the way to go. FSR quality, medium settings still gives you really high fidelity graphics, 69 FPS on average. What else can you ask for, right? 420, yeah, that's a bit too much. Yeah, here in Hogsmeade, obviously things are gonna go up by a little bit. It's less intensive, as I told you, GPU-wise. And now let's see it in that little forest area with the river. At this point, if it doesn't drop from 40 frames per second there, I think it's a good improvement because, you know, 33 to 40 is a big jump in smoothness and input lag especially. So let's see. Over here. All right, 56. That is way better. Going down like a submarine. Yeah. Yeah, it's not dropping too much. Not even from 50 frames per second. That's really impressive. FSR just bumps up our FPS like crazy. It's insane, while making it look sharper than native resolution because of the horrible TAA. And while getting 69 FPS, this is perfect, guys. Just gonna check it out here in this forest area. Curious to see how much it will drop to there. Yeah, it's around average frames per second, basically. This is really impressive. Also, in fights and stuff like that with some effects, it doesn't get as intensive as the other area, by the way. It's slightly more intensive than flying around here in this area, so it could drop into the higher 50s at times. But it's not really a major deal and a major slowdown. I think it's still very, very enjoyable. And I'm gonna restart the game now to test it at 4K. Here we go. 3840 by 2160 is the resolution. Disable FSR and medium settings. Please don't play on low settings, because the jump from low to medium is just insane. And this already runs pretty well on medium at the lower resolution. So yeah, not worth playing at like 4K low, for example, compared to 1440p medium. Now, this is looking really detailed compared to the previous resolutions. That's, of course, because I am using a 4K panel here, so, of course, it looks the best at native resolution. Still a bit soft, though. That TAA, even on a 4K panel, it's noticeably softer than other games at native res. But it looks good, anyways. Definitely does. Of course, it doesn't feel good, so there's no point in playing like this. Major drops. What the hell? No, stop. That's not what I wanted to do. Thank you. Major drops in performance here at 4K. To be expected, it already dropped into the 30s at 1440, and 4K is a much higher resolution. So let's do FSR on quality. Not gonna touch the sharpness this time around, because, you know, it's 4K. It doesn't need to get over-sharpened. And, okay. From 20-something FPS to upper 30s, it's actually quite nice. And 40 FPS, look at that. Wow. That is pretty damn good now. Okay, and it basically looks the same as native resolution here. Slightly sharper, maybe, once again, because of FSR. Look at that. Oh my god, it only dropped to 29 FPS. Are you serious? VRAM usage is also pretty low for some reason, probably because we haven't really spent much time yet flying around, you know. But this is so impressive. Basically, it only drops to 29 in worst case scenario. That means that you can play like this, absolutely. 100%. I thought we'd need to drop the FSR quality to balanced, for example. But now on quality, it's playable. What the hell? If you lock it to 30 FPS and play with the controller, it's gonna look insane and play really well. Give you like a last-gen console experience, or even current-gen console experience with good graphics. What? Is that a flying fish? I think I saw a flying fish. Oh no, of course it wasn't a flying fish. I'm so stupid. It was an owl. Okay. It was just an owl. Anyway, lots of water around here, and it's not really dropping that much. So again, as you saw, the other area was definitely way more intensive. And yeah, it's 30 plus all of the time. Damn, that is crazy. Let's try it on balanced now, guys. And it is looking a bit softer. Okay, not gonna lie, it looked quite a bit more impressive using FSR2 on quality, even at 4K. You can tell the difference, but it does give you quite a bit higher FPS, you know. Instead of getting 30s most of the time, we're now not even dropping from 40 too often. Near the water. Yeah, okay, now it drops into the lower or higher 30s, actually, sorry. Yeah, not bad. Once again, I am super impressed that this experience is possible on a Vega 56. But yeah, coming into this, I never expected this to be a possible experience on a GTX 1070 competitor back in the day. Alright, here we go. This is where it drops the most. 36, 35. Not a problem. I'm gonna disable this now. I'm gonna set it to high settings, which are the recommended settings for this GPU. And I will restart the game to play at 1080p now. This is it. I also set the TAA to high, 1080p resolution, no upscaling, high settings. And to no one's surprise, I think it's getting pretty similar FPS, even though it is consuming a heck of a lot more power, as my Sunday video, full review of the Vega 56 again. I tested it there at 1080p high settings as well as high settings with FSR 2, and at 180 watts, it was getting around these FPS. It actually ended up getting like 48 on average at high. And this is exactly the same thing. I'm not really doing exactly the same thing, of course, and we actually probably are getting a couple of more FPS, but it doesn't really make that huge of a difference. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get 60 FPS, though. As you can see over here, this is a way less intensive scenario. It is getting 60 plus most of the time, even 70. But of course, down there, and especially down there, it's gonna drop like crazy. Why can't it jump? Like, what the heck? Stop getting stuck, buddy. I get that this is a magic game, a very magical game, but why can't he just get to the shore? I'm trying. Such an easy thing to implement, I think. He can't do it. And why can't I open this? This looks like it's openable. Anyway, let's continue. 60s around here, not bad whatsoever. If you only tested it here in Hogsmeade, you'd think that it's capable of getting 60 plus most of the time, especially given that a lot of people say that this is the most intensive area, but it isn't for GPUs. Also, you will likely see a CPU bottleneck if you don't have a strong CPU like a Ryzen 5 5600X paired with this thing. I think 3600, for example, it will definitely drop from 60 FPS here in Hogsmeade because of CPU, not because of the GPU. But we're testing GPU performance as usual, so no CPU bottlenecks can be in place. And here we go, back into the river area and back into the 40s. Seems like the water is actually pretty intensive here. You know, look at this. That's a huge drop. Come on, go. It drops into the 30s at times. Holy crap, that is insane. It's very intensive. They should definitely try to optimize something here, but they won't probably. So let's go back to FSR2, which makes the water not intensive whatsoever. And once again, it looks a little bit better for some people at least. Now I start counting the FPS, not enough to put us above 60 all of the time here, but in areas like Hogsmeade, it will definitely stay above 60. Now let's go here again, 48. Yeah, that's way better than dropping to the 30s, right? So it's smoother, it's more stable, and I think if you have a 1080p monitor, even though this is not 60 plus all of the time, I would play like this. I would choose this experience, guys. Okay, here we are. Dropping into the 50s now instead of into the 40s. So yeah, during sunset, it's definitely way more intensive than during like midday or whatever the time is right now. So keep that in mind. If you're seeing different results, it could also be because of the time of the day in this one. Yeah, now instead of getting like 50s around here, we are consistently above 60 FPS all of the time. This is the experience that I remember from the Sunday video, not the other one. But again, somebody told me that during sunset and dawn, things get a little bit more intensive. Look at that, guys. It's 69 FPS right away. Oh, we need to test it with high TAA, which drops our FPS like crazy by 8. But okay, it's high settings after all. Let's go. It also looks considerably better using TAA on high, by the way. Here we are, starting in the most intensive area right away. Ooh, this is getting way more intensive. It's definitely gonna drop, guys, over here. Although it... no, never mind. No, even here, it's below 30 FPS at times near the water. Nope, this is not playable like this, guys. I mean, to somebody out there, it is playable. If you're used to playing games with the GT 1030, getting 25 plus FPS is actually good, especially with these graphics. But to somebody used to playing games on a Vega 56, this is not good, so I'm gonna stop it there. Let's go with FSR 2 on quality, 1440p, and wow, major improvement once again, like 20 more FPS. That is crazy. I just can't believe sometimes the difference between FSR on and off in this game, and the difference in graphics as well. Like, it looks similar, if not better sometimes, and it performs so much better that you should just play with FSR. It should be a default in this game, I guess. Look at this. Instead of dropping to 28 or whatever it was, we dropped into the low 40s. And our averages are much better now. This is it, guys. If you're playing at 1440p and you just care about those visuals, high settings is pretty damn good. Although, again, during dawn and sunset, it might drop a little bit further. But, you know, it is what it is. Just avoid these very intensive areas during those times of the day, or just wait until it's daytime. You can actually go into the map and manually wait. It takes like 2 seconds or so, and it will change the time of the day. So just skip those times of the day and you'll be fine, I guess, if you care too much about some drops here and there. Oh boy, but keep in mind, it shouldn't really drop from 30 anyways using these settings, so it's quite good, as you can see. Yeah, I got nothing to complain about here. The experience is awesome. Alright, stop it there. Should we do 4K high? It's kind of pointless, but let's do it anyways. Okay, 4K TAA on high, still getting 30 FPS here. It's not terrible. But, you know, thinking about it, it kind of is very terrible. It's not even a cinematic experience. That would be 24 FPS. So if you can't even get the cinematic experience in a game, just don't play it. Or play it at lower settings and resolutions, of course. Yeah, this is really bad. Although it's really good for screenshots. It makes for a good thumbnail, for sure. But we all know what FSR can do, so I'm gonna enable that, and hopefully it's gonna stay above 30. Oh boy, we actually gained like 17 FPS in this scenario here. And it's looking so amazing, dudes. Like, the lighting and shadows compared to medium settings are insane on high. It's a night and day difference, actually, guys. But, of course, it still drops a lot. Yeah, it's still terrible. Look at this. Oh, boy. Yeah, no. We're gonna stop it now. Gonna lower it down to balanced. Something tells me that it's still gonna drop from 30 in that little bridge there. Or below the bridge. Let's go. 31. Yep, okay. Oof. When you get really close to the water, it just gets wrecked. Even with FSR unbalanced here. Look at this. 27, 26. Nope. No way this is a good experience. Let's go to FSR Ultra Performance. I'm gonna do it right away, guys. Ultra Performance FSR, which looks terrible. It actually looks super pixelated and bad. Very fuzzy as well. Look at that. Look at the amount of motion blur caused by FSR. Yeah, this is not good. I mean, the FPS now are completely stable. They don't drop anymore near water, but what's the point, right? It looks terrible like this. Now, it actually performed a little bit better than I expected, so let's do FSR 2 on performance and take a look at how it looks as well. I mean, not too bad, but it starts getting really similar in visuals to lower resolutions, so there's just no point in doing this. It also gets way lower performance than higher or lower resolutions again. And 31, 32, 33. At least it's not dropping here in performance FSR 2. So there's that. I think the sweet spot is either like 1080p high with FSR or maybe even 1440p high with FSR. I liked the experience. It was a bit more sluggish, of course, with lower FPS, but it was still playable and the visuals are just incredible on high settings. So that's been it, my friends. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Love you all. Bye-bye.